Buying and storing dried herbs are super easy if you just have a little bit of information in your back pocket. So you can buy dried herbs anywhere. That said, that doesn't mean you should buy dried herbs anywhere. Now, there's no problem with buying herbs at the grocery store, but when you buy them, you need to check the little best by date. They usually have a little fresh by date, and you want to make sure that's as far in the future as possible. If it's 2 years or sooner, those have probably been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long. And because these are clear bottles, you can see straight through them, the grocery store is really light or really bright. So these are really susceptible to light degradation. And this is my big issue with buying herbs at the grocery store. There's nothing wrong with it, but they won't be as fresh as possible. And you can also buy herbs bulk from the grocery store, which is great, but they're in usually clear tubs that are exposed to light, and people are opening and closing them all day. So you're getting a lot of exposure to oxygen, and they can break down pretty easily as well. That said, for most people, the grocery store is the only place that you can buy herbs, and that's fine. I totally get it. In which case, you want to make sure that the date that you're buying, the little expiration date, is far off in the future. And when you get it home, first thing you want to do is pop it open and smell it. And if it smells good, then great, awesome, for sure. If it doesn't smell very fresh, or if it smells like nothing, I would actually recommend that you take it back to the store and complain. And this actually serves two purposes. One, this will get you hopefully more fresh herbs second time around, but it will alert store management to the fact that the herbs have been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long, and they're not good anymore. And hopefully, in a perfect world, they will do something about it. The other thing you want to do when you get your herbs home is you want to get a little piece of tape, or even you can just write directly on the bottle with a Sharpie, and you want to write the date that you bought it, so just the month and the year. And what this will do is 5 years from now, when you're digging through your cabinet and you find a bottle of oregano and you're like, how the hell long have I had this? And you see that it was 2010, okay, it's time to throw it out. If you don't have that date on there, it's kind of hard to guess because the expiration date can be all over the map. So it's really important to date your herbs and make sure that you know how old they are when they're sitting in your cabinet. My favorite place to buy herbs, honestly, is a spice shop. And they're all over the country. Spices are having a minute. So if you're in the Midwest, there's Penzeys, and there's Spice House in Chicago. On the West Coast, we have World Spice, and I know there's one in Oakland Spice Shop. But a lot of small independent spice shops are popping up all over the place. So if you have an independent spice shop near you, you can usually find one on Google. I would highly recommend shopping there, or at least going in there and checking it out. Even if you don't want to shop there, you can go in there and you can smell the herbs before you buy them. You can talk to the people that run the shop because they always have a ton of information. So you can say, well, I really like thyme, but I'm looking for something a little different. And then they can point you towards other herbs that are maybe similar, but also different to kind of expand your palate. Now, I want to make one little comment about buying herbs and spices in bulk. So everybody probably has one of these hanging around, and this is a gargantuan amount of cinnamon. Now, unless you're working in a professional kitchen and you're going through a cup of cinnamon a week, I don't recommend buying these big containers, because the reality is the average person is not going to use this much of any spice or herb in probably their entire lifetime. So what happens is people buy these huge containers of herbs and spices, and then, they use a teaspoon here and there a couple times a year, maybe even more frequently than that. But this is going to last you 10 freaking years. And odds are you're going to be like me, and you're going to feel guilty about spending $25 on cinnamon, and you're going to hold on to it because you feel bad and you don't want to be wasteful, which is actually highly responsible, and I commend you for that. But the reality is buying a thing of cinnamon or any herb or spice this size is not going to serve you, because by the time you even get a third of the way down, this thing's going to be years old, and it's going to have a fraction of its potency that it used to. You buy herbs and spices because you want flavor, you want intensity, you want something more interesting. If you're letting your herbs age like Methuselah, that's not what you're getting. You're just getting dust, essentially, somewhat flavorful dust. So I highly recommend against buying big bottles like this, and instead recommend you buying no larger than this. So one thing that's really important to note on dried herbs is some herbs, no matter how much you cook them, they will never be soft, right? This is a great example. These are bay leaves, and they smell amazing. They smell so good. But these are not really intended to be eaten. These are, more aromatic. You put them in your sauce, and then you let them cook for 2 or 3 or 4 hours or however long it is, and then you fish these little suckers out, and then you pitch them in the trash. Because this, no amount of cooking is going to make this edible. And it doesn't taste very good to actually eat. It's going to get stuck in your teeth. So it's a little bit of a caveat with some of these things. This is one of them. Another big caveat is dried rosemary. it's too small to fish out, you're just kind of stuck with it. And what inevitably happens is you put dried rosemary into your dish, and even if you cook that dish for 3 hours, you're gonna end up with these little green needles floating around in whatever your food is. And people are gonna eat it, and they're gonna get stabbed in the gums, and they're gonna get them stuck in their teeth, and your friends and family are gonna be like picking shit out of their teeth. And that's just no fun. So I avoid dried rosemary because there's just really no way to work with it, unless what you can do is take a little piece of cheesecloth, like a little square, probably about 6 inches by 6 inches, put your rosemary in the middle of it, tie it so it won't come out, and then toss that sucker in whatever you're making, like if it's a braise or a soup. Because what's gonna happen is the liquid is gonna permeate that little sachet. It's gonna like take all the flavors out of the herbs, it's gonna go into your food, and then you can pick it out and throw it away without any drama. It's kind of perfect. And actually that leads me to one more kind of interesting point about dried herbs, is you can put them in a little bundle. It's called a sachet, and you can do that with any herbs. You can just take, you know, a little square cheesecloth, put whatever dried herbs you want in there. You can put your bay leaf in there. You can put spices in there, so like a, you know, star anise or cumin seeds, and you just float them in your soup. You float them in your whatever you're making, your braise, and then you just pick the whole thing out at once, and it's really easy. It's actually one of my favorite ways to cook with dried herbs because you don't end up with weird little things floating around your food, and it's so easy to discard.